Hey guys, welcome to the last show of On the Horizon. I'm Mike, this is Eric. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry if you sat through my unrecorded initial session, but I want to wrap the show up on a positive note. Eric was mentioning to me yesterday how we have a video recording of what was going on between April and May in 2020. I think that's super interesting. That'll live on in history as we kind of documented and walked people through what was going on, how to stay positive, how to think about the future, and how to deal with sales and marketing and how you take care of customers. So we're going to wrap it up today. We're thrilled that you plan to spend your last Friday morning at 9 o'clock with us. Today we're going to talk probably about during half of the show about sales and marketing alignment because it's so important going forward. And then the second half of the show we'll wrap up and kind of tie a nice bow on what we've been doing for the past week or so and let you guys know how you can get in touch with us if you want to talk to us at any point going forward. So Eric, do you want to kick off the sales and marketing alignment conversation?
Yeah. So if you were in the pre-session before we started recording, Mike and I were talking about some speaking presentations I did over the last week to a variety of groups. And there was a lot of conversation about, well, we'll just have to be patient until the old days return. And while that might be true, I really doubt it. One of the biggest casualties of the old situation transitioning to the new situation will be salespeople who can't adapt. And if salespeople are used to calling on people in person or taking someone out to lunch or playing golf, all those activities are going to change dramatically. And there was a good, healthy debate in some of these sessions about what does the new sales and marketing alignment look like. Well, if you've been on any of our episodes over the last 20 sessions, you know that there's a monster movement towards digital transformation at both entrepreneurial and mid-market companies like we work with. And if you do not embrace that digital transformation and your sales process does not adapt as well, I fear you'll be left behind because companies now are doubling their efforts to leverage digital tools in order to sell their goods or services. And if you don't, well, where does that put you as one of those old school companies, I guess? So it was some lively conversation and I think very appropriate for what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I'll add too, like the most basic sales motion, which unfortunately so many companies still rely on so heavily, the cold call, even the warm call, like you're just going to have a monumental challenge getting in touch with people on their office phones. So even if things do start to go back to what they used to be, you're going to have less people in the office. You're going to have staggered hours. You're going to have people who have the option of working at home. It is just going to be increasingly and continually difficult to get in touch with people the way you used to. So Zoom Info, if you think you're going to buy a list of phone numbers from Zoom Info and just start making phone calls again next month, like I really think you ought to reconsider that strategy dramatically. And what we're going to talk about today is how to think a little differently about what that motion should look like. So we've talked a lot about the buyer journey, maybe too much. I had a guy I was on the phone yesterday. I mentioned buyer journey. He looked up. He's probably heard too much about buyer journey, but it's relevant. It's very relevant when you're talking about sales and marketing and alignment because your prospects don't view their interactions with you as a marketing or sales interaction. They view it as an interaction with your company. So if marketing is doing an amazing job educating, advising, guiding, publishing content, giving a great web experience, and then someone says, hey, I'd like to talk to a sales rep, and the sales rep gets on a Zoom call with them, and they're like, hey, when can I get your proposal? Hey, what do you want to buy? Can I get you something tomorrow? Like, what's your budget? When can we get started? If they start with those old kind of BANT and qualification sales-related tactics, they're giving a mixed message to the prospect. They had a great educational and guidance experience with before they talked. Now they're getting the high pressure, which you guys all know. We all feel like this. We know exactly what this feels like. When the person approaches you in the store and says, can I help you? You're like, no, I'm good. Just looking around, settle down. If I need something, I'll come and get you. And it's the same way we are with sales reps. When we get unsolicited emails, cold calls on our voicemail, we just ignore them now because we have the technology in place to do that ignoring. But it's that same feeling. We want to continue that same experience. How can I help you today? What were you thinking? What's going on in your business that caused you to reach out to us? Tell me some things about your company. Like what challenges are you dealing with that caused you to reach out? I'm not pushing anything. I'm just asking questions. I'm trying to get them to talk about their business. Eric made a great analogy yesterday about the cocktail party. It's the same way when you're at a cocktail party. When someone gets up on top of you and they start talking about themselves, you're like, whoa, dude, like, I'm trying to have a good time here. But when they come up to you like, hey, how you doing? Who do you know here? Like, what do you do? Where do you live? Like, tell me about some of the things you like doing. It's a whole nother conversation. And I think we got to make sure that our sales and marketing experience is aligned enough to deliver that same experience all the way through the process. And then really what the heavy lift here is giving the reps the tools to execute that.
Well, yeah, you know, it's interesting when you say that. So remember, this show is entitled On the Horizon, right? We're looking at things that are happening down the pike. I think that buyers are not only incredibly nervous, but with COVID-19, a bit frantic. They don't want to make the wrong decisions. They have limited budgets. They don't know what's coming down the pike. And this concept of safety and nurturing is very important. The traditional salesperson who's like, hey, what can I do to put you into a Chevy today? You know, that is really tone deaf for what we're talking about today. People are freaking out. And it's a great opportunity for your company to be the person that guides them through a purchase and helps them on their journey. Because remember, whatever you're selling them, they got 100 other things working back at the office too that are stressful as well. And this concept of, like Mike said, let me help you. What's going on? You know, let's look at this. Maybe I could sell you something. Maybe I can't. But if anything, let me try to help you. And I've been, because I do a lot of the business development and talking to prospective clients at our firm, I always start the conversation with, look, I'm going to try to help you today. And if I can't, I'll try to put you into the right place. But the goal here is to kind of guide you on what you should be thinking about on a purchase like this. People really appreciate that because they understand that not everything's a fit and not everything's a hard sell. And I do not know, or I don't know exactly what I'm getting into specifically with a marketing company. Help me, explain to me what's going on. And I think that that's the posture that salespeople should assume. And to be perfectly honest, if you're a salesperson listening today and you can't pivot to that, maybe it's time to not be a salesperson because we're not going to go back to the old ways. Buyer behavior has never changed so dramatically as it has in the last 90 days. I'll give you a quick story. My parents are holed up in Florida. They never came back to Philadelphia because of the virus. And they, because they're retirees, ate every single meal out. Now they're ordering Instacart on their iPhones, having groceries delivered to their condo. I would never have thought that two 80-year-old people would be using Instacart if you asked me 3 months ago. But even older folks are doing a hard pivot on the way they buy stuff. So think about how your clients, even in a B2B scenario, are hard pivoting as well.
Yeah, I think that's some really great advice. And, you know, in that is a really interesting element in terms of like how you initially start a conversation with a prospect. You know, it's no longer like, oh, what level of service do you want? What product do you want? You know, how many of this are you interested in? It's more like, look, I don't know if we're going to be able to help you or not. Let's just start talking about what you're looking for. It's kind of like the same way when you show up at the doctor's office. And we use this analogy a lot, but it's so relevant today. The doctor doesn't start telling you what your treatment plan is before they have an opportunity to examine you, right? And they don't start recommending things to you until they have an opportunity to run a couple of tests and look at what that information tells them. They're really taking the time to get to know you, understand your symptoms, understand your biology, understand what's bothering you, and then they can come back and give you a really smart recommendation. And that takes time, right? We all would love a treatment diagnosis within 2 minutes of showing up at the doctor's office. That would be wonderful, but that's not possible. And it's the same thing with us. We couldn't possibly tell a company who is looking for more leads or more customers or a better relationship with their existing customers what to do until we got to know them. We can't get to know them in 30 minutes. We can't get to know them in an hour. We really have to spend enough time with them to get to know them, their personalities, their clients, their customers' personas, habits, their company's goals and objectives, what they've been currently doing. Like it's a very deep dive. I mean, we call it a diagnostic session. We spend, 90 minutes at least with them, really trying to get to know them before we will recommend anything. So that might feel uncomfortable to some traditional salespeople. Oh my God, I have to spend hours with a prospect getting to know them before I can tell them what I already know they need. Like, yeah, you do. That's what your prospects need. And if you're not going to be willing to work with them like that, they're going to find somebody who is. So this alignment between sales and marketing, where marketing is doing a lot of education and advising and sales continues that experience in a more intimate one-to-one way, because marketing generally isn't one-to-one. It's one-to-many. As much as we say we want it to be one-to-one, and we have some tools that make it appear to be one-to-one, it's really one-to-many. But the sales effort is one-to-one. And that has to be a really intimate and detailed get-to-know-you experience in order for them to feel safe. No one buys anything unless they feel safe. No one buys anything unless their pain is acute. So if you don't have those two elements in place as part of your sales process, it's going to be hard to push forward on the horizon.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of like dovetail on what you were saying, Mike, and talk about two other scenarios around integration of sales and marketing. One is business intelligence, right? So you need to have some kind of software. It's not whether you're going to buy SharpSpring, HubSpot, or Marketo. You are going to have these tools, or you're once again going to be left behind. But from a sales and marketing alignment perspective, if you have a really nice setup like HubSpot, which will give you both the marketing and the CRM part, you can start to use that software to gather the business intelligence you need to do the helping that Mike referred about. So before I'll get on a phone with a prospect, I'll review their behavior. Oh, look, they went to our website 3 times. Oh, look, they sat in on this webinar that we hosted last month. Okay, that's interesting. And the topic of that webinar is how to build a better website. Maybe I should probe in that area because obviously they're interested in that. So that, number one, is a great way that marketing can be generating some of the information that salespeople need in order to help people nurture them and guide them through a process. And then number two, when lead scoring, the ability to calculate how ready someone is to buy is implemented in a tool like HubSpot, well, then we have a mathematical indication when they are ready, which helps salespeople know when it's time to jump in and really start to help them. And then the use of the CRM can keep track of all the things they did to help them. Oh, look, I sent them a link to this here. I sent them a piece of content there. And that way you can juggle multiple opportunities, but the CRM will enable you to make sure you're giving them all the information and content they need to continue down the funnel or along the buyer's journey. And that's something that I think a lot of people miss, because I think popularity of marketing automation software is growing dramatically. You can see by the number of HubSpot subscribers or Marketo users over the last couple of years is growing. But I'm not sure that people understand how to make that flow into the CRM that they're using as well. A lot of folks don't integrate their HubSpot and Salesforce.com. So now the sales team is on an island with their basic set of information while all this valuable information is trapped into HubSpot. So if you really want to look to on the horizon in the integration of sales and marketing, you want to make sure that your marketing automation platform is tied into your CRM and you have a lovely two-way communication between the two software so that you can not only get that information, but then use data like lead scoring or close rates or a sales cycle time to really make some decisions about how to improve your experience with your prospects. Back to you, Mike.
That's awesome advice. Eric, in the last 7 minutes, I know you have a wrap-up planned of all the things we covered over the past 19 episodes. So why don't you share that with our watchers?
Well, the first thing I could say is it's been a full month that we've been doing On the Horizon, and I hope that all of our listeners and viewers got some good value out of it. And thanks for sitting in, because obviously you could be doing a lot of other things the first 20 minutes of your day. But one big shout out to our audience is that because they sat in on this, it forced me to shower in the morning and actually get ready, which I wasn't doing before On the Horizon. So thanks for the hygiene. I just wanted to quickly run through all the things we talked about in the last 20 episodes. In week 1, we talked about how you have to pivot. We talked about working from home and how that's the new normal and how you can connect with people that are working from home. We talked about content and how it changed dramatically in a 30-day period. We talked about rethinking marketing's digital transformation and how people are now not face-to-face, but have to use digital tools and some of the ones that you might be interested in. And then we also applied that to sales and what the sales digital transformation was. In week 2, we jumped into rethinking about customer service, right? How can I help my people but not be with them face-to-face? We talked about your website experience, how much more engaging it has to be because people are depending on the website to find information because they can't go into your retail store or grocery store. We then started talking about buyer's journey. To Mike's point, we've talked about that a lot, but it's so important. Look at my parents, how they're buying now from a supermarket versus going in to Costco Live like they used to. We also talked about, are you digitally remarkable? Are you giving people digital tools that make them go, wow, this company's got it going on? And we gave you several examples of both big and small companies that are doing that pivot. We also talked about leadership and how you can lead a digital transformation in your organization. And then we meshed into week 3. And week 3 was exciting because we talked about more granular things like email, what not to do and what to do in times like this. We talked about setting up a live program like this, and we gave you a little behind the scenes in Mike's video studio / basement. We talked about things like how to think like a publisher and how to consistently provide content to folks so they do feel safe and they want to engage with you even in a crisis like COVID-19. We talked a little bit about CRMs and marketing automation software, but more importantly, we gave you examples of how you can use that for people that are now working remotely. And then we wrapped up week 3 by talking about it's starting to feel like things are opening up. What can you do to prepare for that? Which was very timely because now you have something like 19 states, I believe, Mike, that are starting to open up. And that's exactly what we were intending, that on the horizon, things you can do when things open up. And then earlier this week, we've been having a lot of fun. We're talking about social media on Monday of this week. We talked about how to gauge your return on investment. We talked about metrics that'll help you see how people are progressing through your scenario. Yesterday, we talked about how we can look at revenue generation as a science. And today, we wrapped up with the alignment of sales and marketing. That's a boatload of information, and they're all in 20-minute segments. So we would implore you to not only go back and use these episodes as a resource to remember some of the things that we talked about, but we want you to share it, not only with your leadership team, but other folks that you think might need a little help during this period. Of course, we could be doing other things for these 20 minutes every day as well, but we devoted ourselves to putting out some content that might help just one extra person be more successful during this crisis we're enduring now. And if I could say personally, this has been a tough time. I talk to a lot of people on a weekly basis, and there's a lot of people suffering out there. So, lend a hand. If you got a buddy who owns a business and he's suffering and maybe you're not suffering as much, spend an hour with them on Zoom, like looking at what they're doing and maybe using some of the content we provided you with over the last month to help out a fellow entrepreneur or business owner. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing that information because, hey, that's positivity and we all need some more of that these days. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Eric. That was awesome. And as you guys can tell, we're happy to share what we know with people. We're not looking for anything in return. This is a completely ungated set of content that we've created for people to go and get some advice on how to deal with their businesses from a sales and marketing perspective. And I know I speak for Eric. If any of you or anyone you know are interested in talking to us, we're very easy to get in touch with. You can email me directly, mike@square2marketing.com. I will talk to anybody at any time about anything related to helping their businesses grow, generate revenue, marketing, sales, and customer service. And I know I speak for Eric. You can get in touch with him, Eric@square2marketing.com, and he will be equally magnanimous with his time and expertise. So again, big thank you to everyone who joined us. We had a good time doing it, and I hope you guys got a little out of it. And we'll be back soon with something new as soon as we can figure out what that's going to be. But when we do, we'll share it with you, and hopefully we'll see you there. Thanks so much. You guys have a great day. And
be safe and be healthy.